Hey guys, Sean here at the Gardener Center. So this week I received another picture from one of our customers via email. This one's going to be especially interesting to you if you're gardening with roses, particularly if they're white or yellow or pink roses, because believe it or not, even insects have color preferences sometimes. And then I'm going to talk about two popular annuals that a lot of people use. A lot of times during the course of the growing season, they develop what we could call appearance issues. So I'm going to talk about some appearance issues that these guys get, how to prevent it from happening, and what to do if it does happen, so stay tuned. All right guys, so this picture was sent to us by one of our customers, Lynn. So Lynn, thank you for the photo. This is actually a really common issue for roses, and yes, this is an insect called thrips, and they actually prefer light colored rose flowers. They rarely, if ever, go after red or orange roses. They almost always target the whites, the pale pinks, and the pale yellows. So if you're gardening with those roses and those colors, something to keep an eye out for right now, because I mean, it's June, it's rose time. A lot of people mistake this damage for a disease, and at first glance it certainly looks like that because it looks kind of like rotty or spotty. But these are actually caused by thrips. They're little teeny tiny insects, and you rarely, if ever, see them. The mother thrip, when she's getting ready to lay her eggs, she pierces the outside of a rosebud while it's small. She lays her eggs inside there, and then as the rosebud develops, so do the babies. So they're feeding on the rosebud on the inside while it's developing. And later on, that manifests itself as this damage that you see here in the picture, which looks like rot or rain damage or a disease, but it's damage caused by the thrips. Good news and bad news on the thrips front here. You never see them because they're inside the flower, which makes them especially hard to get rid of. Because if you're spraying them, most sprays have to make contact with the insect, and if you've ever peeled apart a rosebud or worked with roses before, they have lots and lots of layers of petals, so really hard for a pesticide to get in there. If you're being organic, your two options are, number one, if you see this kind of damage on your roses, cut it off. I mean, it's sad to cut rosebuds off before they open, but if you see any kind of damage like that, and you usually see it pretty early, as soon as the rosebuds start showing color, you'll see that streaking and those spots. Cut them off, and it's important that you do, because the thrips, believe it or not, the thrips' entire life cycle is 2 weeks. From the time they hatch to the time they die, it's 2 weeks. And there's a whole lot of thripping going on during those 2 weeks. There's many generations of them happening. They're very prolific, and they're really tiny insects, and you rarely see them. But if you ever peel apart the bud and knock them out of there, they're actually kind of menacing looking, and they run around and scurry in circles like ants. They give you that kind of creepy crawly feeling. So thrips, if you do want to use a spray or a chemical to control them, I have an organic option here and one that's not organic but works really well. So if you have a severe problem, I direct you to the BioAdvanced rose and flower care here. That's a systemic granule for roses that is both fertilizer and insecticide. So that's going to get absorbed into the plant. And usually with systemics, they get absorbed right into the new growth right away, which is where your flower buds are. So if you have a severe thrip infestation and you're not opposed to using a non-organic product, this rose and flower care is the way to go. And it also feeds your roses. Your organic choice, other than physically removing, and remember guys, if you do physically remove those buds, they go in a plastic bag in the garbage. Don't put them in the compost or throw them in the yard, because they're gonna hatch and continue the cycle. Your other organic spray option would be the Captain Jack's, the spinosad, which we talked about last week. This is a biological organic product. Again though, it has to get into the thrips hiding inside the bud there, so you can use it, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as getting rid of the buds or using the rose and flower care here. If you have thrips, now you know what to do. Stay tuned. I'm going to talk about 2 popular summer annuals. All right, guys, so I have 2 really popular summer annuals here that we sell a lot of. I'm going to start over here with the geraniums. Funny thing about geraniums, and actually not really a funny thing about geraniums, but a funny thing about people that buy geraniums, is geraniums, of all the plants I sell, and I've been selling for so many years, geraniums are one of those plants where you either love them or you hate them. It's kind of like people who put ketchup on eggs. You know, it's like you either do or you don't. There's not a lot of I feel like ketchup on my eggs today. You know, it's one of those kind of situations. And it's really a shame because geraniums are really, really valuable in the landscape, and especially in containers. I think one of the reasons people shy away from using them, and this is just me speculating, I haven't read any studies on this or anything. I think one of the reasons people don't like using them is, and here in New England where we garden, I think an aesthetic that people go for is kind of that New England look or that country look. People like to use whites and purples and pinks a lot, and I think geraniums have a really heavy Mediterranean presence. I mean, look at this guy in this terracotta pot here. It screams Italy. And if you've ever been to Italy in the summertime, you see these in everybody's window boxes. The Italians are crazy about geraniums. And there's a reason for that, and it's a reason why you might want to be crazy about them in certain situations, is geraniums are incredibly drought tolerant. And not only drought tolerant, they can easily be killed with water. Something people don't usually know about geraniums, kind of really cool, is geraniums are succulents. So if you went to the library and grabbed the big encyclopedia of cacti and succulents and opened up to the P section and looked up pelargoniums, you are going to find these guys in that succulent book. They are closely allied to cactuses, aloes, jade plants, think of all those guys. And, on the subject of jade plants, these guys come from South Africa, which is the same place jade plants come from. And South Africa, I think, has the coolest plants on the face of the planet, to be honest with you. And they are succulents. If you've ever handled geraniums before, they have kind of those thick, fleshy stems. Their leaves are somewhat thick and fleshy. Now, they're succulent. They're not succulent to the point that you could put them outside and not water them for a month. That's going to kill the geranium. But could you put it outside and not water it for 2 weeks and they'll be alive? Absolutely. Daily watering, like you would do with your petunias over here, you don't want to use on your geraniums. One of the things that geraniums do tend to do over the summertime, especially if we get rain, because remember where they come from, South Africa. If we get rain for a couple of days in a row, or just wet weather for a couple days in a row, a lot of times, the flowers fade eventually, but a lot of times the rain will damage the flowers because they don't like that. They like dry conditions. Remember Italy, it barely rains there in the summertime. So the flowers will do this. And a lot of times people will make the mistake of pinching the flower off at the top like that. And you don't want to do that, because what that does, this stem now is going to remain behind and just turn brown. So the thing you want to do with geraniums, and I love cleaning geraniums, I wish I had more time to do it because it's really therapeutic. If you follow that stem all the way down into the base and just give it a gentle twist, it'll come right off, right at the base. I could do that all day long. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, so don't leave your sticks behind like that. Their flowers last for weeks once they open, but if we do get that wet weather, they'll get a little funky like that. So you just go in and pick them off like that. Grab a glass of wine or a beer or your coffee in the morning, and spend a little bit of time clean up your geraniums. Another guy over here, much more popular than the geraniums or petunias, and this petunia over here. People are funny with petunias too when I sell them in the springtime too, because a lot of times people will say, well, I used petunias last year, but I don't want to use them again because they got really leggy. And guilty as charged. A lot of petunias do get leggy. Sometimes it's just the nature of the plant. Mine, who I take very good care of, they usually don't get leggy to the point that it bothers me till well into September. Something that will expedite the leggy process though is inconsistent watering, inconsistent feeding, and more often than not, a combination of both of those things. Think about it, as the plant grows, the new growth is on the outside. If you underwater your petunias, if you under-fertilize your petunias, the plant will actually divert energy from the inside, which is the oldest growth, and divert that water and divert the nutrients to the outside. So then you'll end up getting, you'll lose your flowers on the interior, and then you'll start seeing the leaves go to a pale green and then a yellow, and eventually you might end up with a whole bunch of bare stems in the middle, and that's when they become a problem, and that's where a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to have geraniums, or I'm sorry, petunias again. Quick solution to the problem is, cut them back. This may look drastic and scary, but this is an overgrown petunia basket we have here at the store, and I just recently went through and cut back a bunch of them, and this guy's going to look a little silly, but in a couple of weeks we'll revisit this one that I cut back, and I'm going to show you guys what happens. And it's really, once you got them back like this, maybe you don't want them front and center in your house, move it somewhere where it's not quite so in your face. Got to water them, but you have to fertilize them. If you cut them back like that and you feed them every 2 weeks, it's like magic. 2 weeks, you'll be able to put that guy right back where it came from. And if they're already in your planter, same thing. Just snip them back. The other thing people ask all the time about petunias, and people think it's a disease or an insect, and it's not. Just like we talked about the rain with the geraniums over here, this is something that happens as a result of rain. This is not an insect, this is not a disease, and it's not going to happen if we get a shower or that sort of thing. This is usually the result of like a downpour from a thunderstorm, and this is especially a problem on white petunias. White petunias get really damaged by heavy rain. Not an insect or disease, and these, you can pick these off, but I wouldn't even bother. These modern petunias, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, like the Proven Winners and the Color Blitz series, they've all been bred for certain characteristics, color, form, and my personal favorite is self-cleaning. I mean, remember before we had self-cleaning ovens? I mean, what a miracle that was. Remember you used to have to wear those gloves and spray the stuff that would melt your skin off? I mean, these are self-cleaning petunias. So you really don't have to pick at these, you don't have to trim them. The trick though is they're not self-cleaning when the flowers are wet, because they'll get wet and they'll stick. Let them dry out, they'll blow away. So you don't have to spend a lot of time picking at your petunias, but even if you do, that's kind of relaxing too. So that's petunias. We have the geraniums over here. Stay tuned and I'll be right back. All right, guys, so once again, I'd like to thank Lynn for sending us that really cool picture of the thrip damage. And once again, I'd like to invite all of you guys to send me your pictures. That was a great example of exactly what I'm looking for. I don't have thrip damage here at this nursery to show you guys, and otherwise I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So if you see funky things going on in the garden, please hit that contact Sean there on your browser and email me just 1 or 2 good shots of your problem. At the very least, I'm going to email you back and let you know what it is and what to do. Or you might see your picture and your diagnosis here on my video next time. So again, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.